So the first thing you want to do is you want to press Ctrl-Shift-S to save it into a new After Effects file. After creating your After Effects file, you may now save it as to never lose your progress by pressing Ctrl-S. Now let's start the animation. Create a new composition and name it Subscribe Animation. You may copy my settings. I usually keep it at 1920 by 1080, which is fine. Set this duration to around 10 seconds or however long you want it to be. For the frame rate, you can set this to 60, but I'm going to have it at 30 for this animation. Keep your background color at black. That should be okay, but you can also make it whatever you want. Next, we are going to create the shape layer. Simply right click here, click new, and click shape layer. Make sure you go to the rectangle tool, hold, click, keep holding, and then let go on rounded rectangle tool. Next, click and drag until you get to around the size you want your subscribe animation to be. I'll keep it at maybe this size. Click V on your keyboard so you can move it around, and then go to your Align tab, which if you don't have, you can go to Window, make sure this is checked, and click Align horizontally and Align vertically. Now it should be fully centered. Then go up to this fill section, click this square, set it to a very good tone of red. So I'd say around here should be pretty good. Really quickly, before we keep going, right click here, click new, click solid. Make sure the color is green, fully green, 0 on red, 0 blue, 255 green. Name it green screen. Make sure it's the same resolution as the background and drag it to the bottom layer. This will be the green screen for the rest of the project. Click again on your shape layer and continue adjusting the stroke outline. But if you don't like the stroke outline, then you don't have to add it. In fact, I don't think I'll be adding it. Now we have our shape done. Next, we can make the text. Right click this empty area, click new, and do new text layer. Then just type whatever you want. Now, reposition it so it's around the center. It will snap automatically. Make sure this anchor is in the center. And how you do that is you click anchor tool or Y on your keyboard. Then you move this until it's the center. It will snap. And then press V on your keyboard again to get your cursor. Then reposition it to the center by going to your Align tab and clicking horizontal and align vertically. Well, click first and then hold shift. Now scale down to the size you like. I'd say around here is a good size. Now we're going to start the animation. So first things first, you're going to want to combine these two together. Click one of them, hold shift and click the other. Then right click it, recompose, subscribe button. Now press P on your keyboard to bring up the positioning. We're going to want to bring this to the very beginning of your timeline. Click this little stopwatch and you slide the subscribe button till it's just below the screen. Now go around 1 second in and drag this back to the center. Set it to 540 if you want it exactly in the center. So now, if we preview it, it should be a pretty smooth animation up. Now that was really bad, and you can always shorten it too, play around with it. But there's no easing, which we will add now. So grab these two keyframes by clicking and dragging, and click F9 on your keyboard. Now go to the graph editor. Make sure this button is on speed graph. Edit speed graph. Click anywhere here on the curve. Grab this yellow dot over here and pull it all the way to the center. It will automatically snap to the center, so you don't have to worry about that. Here's what it will look like. The next thing we'll work on is rotation. So to make our effect, we're going to go here, go to Effects and Presets. Again, if you don't have this, go to Window and go to Effects and Presets. We're going to look up Wiggle. I'm going to do Rotation, hold Shift, and click Position. We're going to drag that onto our subscribe button. Now, it will look pretty ugly at first because it is way too high value. So we're going to set wiggle amount for the rotation. Make sure you're on effect controls, which you can simply switch over to like that. Make sure this is around 2. We'll play around with it a lot later. Wiggle amount for position. Make sure that's also pretty low. Now that should be pretty good. Now we can kind of check it out. Okay, so the wiggle animation is pretty slow. So we can increase that. So first of all, let's make the wiggle rotation degree around 4. And the wiggles per second, let's keep it at that. So that's pretty nice. Now let's affect the position. Let's make it around 10. Let's see what that looks like. That's pretty cool, but I think we might be able to do it a bit more. Okay, so we have this nice animation that we didn't have to even use rotation for, so we can actually just remove the rotation entirely. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to start the clicking animation. So maybe go around 1 second in. So maybe around at the 2-second mark. We can scroll in by holding Alt and scroll just a bit so it's easier to move around. Next, we're going to click this subscribe pre-composition. I cannot say that. Then click Shift and S, or just S if you don't really care about having your position up. I will have my position up just to keep a little reference. Next, click the keyframe icon, the little clock, and set the scale to whatever you want. So I'm going to have it at 100 because I like this size. You can set it to whatever you want. Next, move around a few frames over, and we're going to set this to around 80. Actually, I think we're going to go 90 just for a bit more subtlety. Select these 2 keyframes, click F9 on your keyboard, and enter the graph menu. We're going to do the same animation as before, and we're going to click this right dot and drag it to the center. Go back and test what it looks like. So I definitely say that is pretty cool. Next, we're going to go the same amount of frames that we went before. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to click this keyframe right here, Control C and Control V. Command if you're on Mac. This should make a pretty nice looking clicking animation or just going in animation. If you think that's a bit too fast, simply copy and paste this over 1 frame. So select this keyframe, copy, paste over here. Move this 1 frame over so it's still even, and then you can just move these 2 keyframes anywhere you want. So I made a cool animation like that, so it kind of sticks for a few frames instead of instantly going up. You can move it as far as you want. We are now going to work on changing the text when it goes in to subscribed and changing the color of the background to gray. So go to this point right here. Now, enter the pre-composition. I really cannot say that. And double click it, and you're at the exact keyframe in which the clicking starts. Now go to Effects and Presets. Go look up Grayscale. And just grab Grayscale 1. Put it onto your shape layer. Click the stopwatch for saturation. And set it to 100. Or 0. 0 is also the same. Head back to your main composition and go to the keyframe in which it is fully pressed down. Now go back to your subscribe button composition and set the grayscale effect saturation to 0 or -100. Press U on your keyboard to see the actual keyframes in the timeline. Now it will turn gray when it is clicked. You can also align this with the animation by pressing F9 on your keyboard, going to the graph editor, and setting this graph to the same as usual. Just drag it to the middle. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now go to whatever point you want. So I would say around here. Around here, where you can still slightly see the red. We're going to enter subscribe button. Click this subscribe here. Click or Control-Shift-D. It will cut this segment into a different layer. Then make it say subscribed. So now you'll see in that exact frame that we wanted, it now says subscribed. If we preview this in our animation, we should see it turn into subscribe right before it hits the bottom click. Now I'd say that is pretty smooth. Finally, we're going to work on the going down animation. To do this, we pretty much just need to copy and paste. Go to around estimated time in between these 2 points, equivalent on this side, so around here. Next, grab this keyframe, hold Control-C, and then press Control-V, and it'll copy and paste. Now we're going to grab this keyframe, move it over, do the same thing. Next, we're going to edit this easing, so we're going to go to Graph Editor. We're going to make it the opposite of this. So instead of pulling the right side over, we're going to pull the left side over. You can also pull the right side over, but I prefer more like this. So it gradually goes down and gets faster as it falls. Make sure you constantly press Ctrl+S to save it into the After Effects file that we created in the beginning. The last thing I'm going to do is add a drop shadow. So go to your effects and presets and look up drop shadow in the menu here. Click this, drag it, and put it onto your subscribe button. Now, just add a drop shadow and mess around. Whatever you want to do. And that looks pretty good to me. Let's preview it. And there you have your very clean and nice subscribe animation. The last thing you want to do is export it. So first of all, we're going to go to here, go to your subscribe button or subscribe animation composition, right click it, composition settings, change this to maybe 5 seconds or 6 seconds. And now it's just a bit shorter and more manageable. Then, select subscribe animation, go to your composition, add to media encoder queue. Now, you need Creative Cloud in order to do this, in order to have the media encoder. If you don't have that, just add to render queue and make sure this is on AVI. And you can just output it to anywhere you want. But in this case, I will add to Adobe Media Encoder. After waiting for it to load up, you'll just wait a bit longer until the file appears here. Now here it is, my subscribe animation. Click this blue button right here and set the place where you want it to go to wherever you want it to go. Next thing you want to do is click this button here. Make sure the format is on H.264. This basically means MP4. Now finally, make sure this is selected and click this green play button. It will say done once you're done, and that should be it. You are all set.